Hey, I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex. These are my 10 most unique board games of 2024. I play a lot of games. This year I played about 300 board games for the first time. And so uniqueness matters a lot to me because a lot of games feel like retreads of other games, you know? I've seen it before. So when something is different, when something is original, when something is unique, it really stands out. It piques my interest because I'm like, ooh, okay, interesting. Never seen this before. I think of all of these category videos, I think I've been doing my most unique games for the longest because it has just always been important to me. It's always, finding something that is different, that is original, matters to me. And so all of these games don't feel like anything I've played before, and I love that about them, and I hope you do too. Number 10 is Tiny Laser Heist from Very Special Games. This plays 3 to 6 players in 30 to 90 minutes, and it is a lighter weight game. It's kind of like a strategy party game, a dexterity party game. That's probably a better way to put it. It is a dexterity party game, and it has a really unique table presence. You are going to sort of build this box contraption and then have these strings that connect from various points in the box to other points. Those represent lasers, and you are trying to pull off a heist without tripping those lasers, and it looks incredible on the table. I will say, this is meant to be a silly, physical, laughing game, feels like an activity just as much as it does a game. Yes, there are ways to win and lose, but you're not going to walk away from it remembering that. You're going to remember these sort of silly moments when somebody tripped a wire or didn't or whatnot. So you have to build your heist team every round. Somebody is an active player, and they can recruit one or more players to be on their heist team, and then you are going to use tiny hands to move locks off of jewels and then move jewels onto a center pedestal. And so it really is just silly dexterity of moving things. Other people can play cards to mess you up. They can say, oh, you have to do this without moving your feet. You have to stand in one place, or you have to wear this mask, or you have to close one eye, or something like that. Just all sort of wacky stuff that makes it sillier and ups the antics in the game. But, it feels... I've never used tiny hands in a game. I don't know that was a sentence I ever thought I was going to do, but it feels different because you're using tiny hands in the game, and it's silly and fun. Number 9 is A Message from the Stars from All Play. This plays 2 to 8 players in 45 minutes, and it is a medium weight game. This is a game that I can see people either loving or not liking it because it is weird, it is different, and it has the potential to break your brain because there are a lot of different layers to the game. There is deduction, there's word association, there's math, there's all this sort of stuff where you're like, wait, there's one more thing? There's another thing? So in the game, one player is playing as an alien, and they are trying to communicate with everybody else who is playing as scientists. It is a cooperative game, and so I included this in my top cooperative games of the year as well. And you have letters behind a privacy screen, so you are trying to get people to guess those letters, but you also have words behind a privacy screen, and you want people to guess those words. And you're doing it by giving an association clue and then scoring that clue. So, if the clue has some trust letters in it, for each trust letter that is in it, you're going to give it 1 point. But then, if it has an amplification letter in it, you're going to times it by 2. But then if it has a negative, it has the sort of suspicion letter in it as well. And so if I hand a word back to you and it's got a score of 24, negative 24, maybe the word has a score of negative 24, so you're like, okay, I know that one of the suspicion letters is here. I know that it probably has to be amplified and probably also has to be amplified multiple times because you don't get to 24 unless we're multiplying it we're doubling it a couple of times. And so you're using all this deduction to go, what is this number telling me about the letters that are in this? How do I figure it out? How do we talk it out? And again, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. And it definitely is like the first time you play it, you're like, wait, what? But now I've like really enjoyed the game and I want to play it. It's one that I'm like, once you figure it out, I'm itching to play it again because it is so weird and different and unique. So if you like word association, if you like deduction, then check out A Message from the Stars. Number 8 is Wilmot's Warehouse from CMYK. This plays 2 to 6 players in about 30 minutes and it is a lightweight game. Wilmot's Warehouse is essentially if we were using storytelling to create a mnemonic device together. So mnemonic devices are how people can remember certain things. Oh, I put this acronym together and it's, Roy G. Biv. Those are the colors of the rainbow and it helps me remember the colors of the rainbow. And in this, you are putting out sort of abstract cards onto a central grid, onto a board, and then building a story that will help you remember where those abstract cards are. Because everything is going to get flipped over and then you have to place stuff down in the correct places at the end of the game. It is a cooperative game, and so you're just building this wild story together. I remember when I played it, we had this and everything's abstract, so it's just down to like your creative brain, your storytelling, your weird thoughts. And so we made this weird story about how this was a guy pooping in a golden throne, and here was his toilet paper, and here was his old butt, and here was his dead butt, and so there was a time aspect to it, and it got so, and then this is the toothbrush that rests above the toilet paper in the bathroom, and it just, if someone saw us playing this game, they'd be like, what are you doing? This sounds insane, and it is kind of insane, but it is essentially just cooperative, random storytelling to help you remember cards, and it feels like nothing I've ever played before. That's Wilmot's Warehouse. Number 7 is Vampire Village from Studio H and Hachette. This plays 1 to 5 players in 30 minutes, and it is sort of on the edge of light to medium weight. Vampire Village was in my top small box games of the year, and it feels unique in that it is crazy mean. And it's not just you being mean to each other, it's everything. The game is mean to you. You are being mean to everybody else. You're being mean to yourself. The game is being mean to you, but it plays quick, so it doesn't bother me. I don't like really mean games if we're playing it for like 2 hours. But Vampire Village is over so quickly, and it's so mean it makes me laugh. It's like, oh my God, this game just punched me in the mouth over and over and over again, and I have nothing. Isn't that wild? You have nothing too. We all have nothing. That's amazing. And it's hilarious in that how much it takes from you. You are building out your village with these cards and trying to protect yourself from monsters. And the monsters will attack from different sort of directions. Witches will attack from the west. Vampires will attack from the east. Werewolves will attack from the north. And all the cards, you're deciding where to put them in your tableau, in your grid, to have the protection value against those specific things. But then you're just going to get hit with those specific things, and it decimates you so much more than you think you're going to. You're like, okay, I got these 3 cards to protect against vampires, and then 6 vampires come at you, and you're like, I wasn't prepared for 6 vampires, and the game's like, ha ha ha, we got you. And so if you don't mind like a little bit of tearing everything down, it kind of feels like a Galaxy Trucker in that way, where you like build it up and then just tear everything down. And so if you like the sound of that, check out Vampire Village. It's a small box game too. It's fun. Number 6 for me is Nunatak, Temple of Ice from Cosmos. This plays 2 to 4 players in 30 to 45 minutes, and it is on the edge of that light to medium weight. This feels different and unique in the sort of building this 3D temple. You are building this pyramid, and you're all doing it collectively, but it is not a cooperative game. It is a competitive game, and so the way you're building this up feels interesting because there is a market of cards, and you are sort of drafting one card every round and then placing your piece out on a tile that is associated with that type of card. And there's a whole set collection element. You're going to be, gaining these different types of cards, and different cards are going to score you points in different ways. That part of it doesn't feel, crazy different. Set collection, scoring in different ways for different things. These are scoring this way and this is scoring this way. But, having that sort of shared pyramid, and you're fighting for control of different areas on the pyramid and stuff like that. When you put a new level of the pyramid down, when you put a new floor down, you're going to score points for every one of your blocks that is your color underneath. And then when you finish rows and columns of blocks, you're going to get benefits for that. And so it's just all about kind of where do you want to build, how do you want to build, and it looks really cool at the end of the game for sure. It is an awesome 3D structure. I considered putting Nunatak Temple of Ice in my top family games of the year because it feels, close to a family game, and I ended up not because I think maybe it's just on that, just slightly above family weight, in strategy. It's just slightly maybe too complicated, but if you have experienced family members, then, they could certainly play it. It's not wildly complicated or anything like that. And it just looks crazy awesome on the table for sure. Number 5 on my most unique games of the year is Arcs from Leader Games. This plays 2 to 4 players in 60 to 120 minutes, and it is medium plus or maybe lower heavyweight. It's on that edge of medium to heavy. And Arcs is unique in that it is a whole board game with a bunch of board elements, but it's driven by a trick-taking card system. I've played a lot of games that mix trick-taking with other stuff, but normally they mix trick-taking with a small box. It's trick-taking and deck building, it's trick-taking and deduction, stuff like that. But Arcs is like a big board game that also mixes in trick-taking and feels very unique in that way. You're going to be playing cards to take the actions of the suit, essentially. Different things will allow you to do different stuff. They'll allow you to build more things on the board. They'll allow you to repair stuff. They'll allow you to move. They'll allow you to, basically get different actions and special abilities and stuff like that throughout the game. And then anybody else that's following you in the turn can surpass you by playing the same suit but higher. They can also, play a card face down and take one action of your lead suit and stuff like that. So there's just an interesting card play at the center of it of when do I want to win a trick to sort of gain the initiative because I need it for the next round? When am I okay losing it? How do I want to play cards in order to get the actions that are optimal for me at this point of the game? I will say about Arcs, and maybe why it's not higher on this list for me, is it is really conflict heavy. You better like fighting each other in games. It's almost maybe too conflict heavy for me. I think it's a great game, but boy, is it, the game forces you to fight each other. It pushes you into that. You can't really turtle and win this game. You have to be out there fighting people, and there's some dice rolling involved with fighting, so inherently there's gonna be some luck when you're just all right, we gotta roll some dice and see who wins this fight. And so I know some people have gotten frustrated where they're oh, I'm terrible at rolling dice, and so I can't ever win that game. And it's yeah, there is an element of just, roll some dice, see what happens. But I do feel like it is a really unique system, how all of the actions are defined by this card play and this trick-taking thing in it. So if you don't mind conflict, Arcs is a very unique and cool game. Number 4 for me is the game Xylotar. I kind of mentioned this when I was talking about arcs in the sense that this mixes trick-taking with deduction in a way that I've never seen before. It's from Bezier Games, plays 2 to 5 players in 30 minutes, and it is a lightweight game. I included this in my top card games of the year, and it's just... I've never played a trick-taking game where you don't get to see your hand. Literally, the player to your right is going to arrange your hand in order for you and then hand you your cards, and you never get to see them. You're going to lay them all out in front of you, and the backs of the cards tell you what suit they are, and they tell you a number range for them. It's like this number is from 0 to 4, and this one is from 0 to 7. And so as you're playing out cards into a trick, you are learning about your hand. Because, if this card says 0 to 7 and it's over here and it's a 4, boy, I got a bad hand, because that means everything over here is 4 or less, and only these 4 cards here are higher than a 4. And so, that will help you determine how you're going to win tricks, how you're going to lose tricks, because ultimately you're getting more points by hitting your bid. At some point during the round, you're going to flip out a card and say, this is the bid I'm trying to hit. And then you have to try to hit that to get bonus points and stuff like that. And it's just I love that aspect of learning about your hand as the game goes on. And so it's like one of those games where I mumble to myself where I'm like, okay, that was a 3 that I played there, so this is probably a 6 or something like that. So if I need to win a trick, maybe I hold on to that one. And so, it follows normal trick-taking rules where you have to play on suit and stuff like that. And there is, a trump color and all that sort of stuff. But it's a really cool, if you like trick-taking games, it mixes in deduction in a way I've never seen before. Number 3 is Tether from How to Steam Broccoli. This plays 2 to 4 players, but I'm going to caveat that, in 15 to 30 minutes, and it is sort of on that edge of light to medium weight. They say it plays 2 to 4 players. This is a 2-player only game to me. You can play it 4 players in teams, but it's meant to be a 2-player game, and I included this in my top 2-player games of the year. When I think of unique card games, this is one of the most unique card games I've ever played. Every card in the deck is sort of a mirror card. They call it a mirror deck, meaning if I'm looking at the card from my perspective, we have to sit across the table, and if I'm looking at the card from my perspective, I see it as an 86, but you see it as a 68, and we are both trying to play the cards differently. One player is playing cards into groups horizontally, and one player is playing them into groups vertically. And to create groups, you just need to create consecutive numbers. Oh, I have a 35, a 36, a 37. Boom, I got all of them together. I've started this group. But now, that 37 looks like a 73 to you, and so you're going to come and play a 74 above that. And at intervals during the game, you're going to score for the groups on the table, and we're basically going to count out how many horizontal that group is versus how many vertical that group is. This group was 5 cards, horizontally, and only 2 cards vertically, and so it's scoring more for the horizontal player. And it just, this is one where I feel like I've taught to a lot of people because it's a small box and easy to bring anywhere with you. And so I'm always like, let's just start playing. I'm going to teach you as we go, and about halfway through, it's going to click for you, and then we can start over and play a real game. And that's kind of always where, because it's so different and weird, and you're like, what? And then you start going, I start seeing these connections, and I start seeing these ways to make the group slam together and bring them together, and how can I play this to, hurt you and help me and stuff like that. It's just, that mirror deck is so interesting and cool in Tether. Number 2 for me is Let's Go to Japan from AEG. This plays 1 to 4 players in 45 to 60 minutes, and it is a medium weight game. In Let's Go to Japan, you are building an itinerary for your trip to Japan. Thematically, I love how the story behind how the designer came up with this game. He had a trip to Japan planned that the pandemic canceled, and he was like, you know what, I'm gonna make a game about the trip that I had planned. And what an awesome thing to come out of a terrible situation. And so you are drafting and passing cards and then playing these cards into sort of your day itinerary. Everybody has a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. And you are playing cards into those columns. And then every card has symbols on it and its own sort of unique scoring opportunity. And so one card might say, like, this card is worth 5 points, but if you have 4 of these symbols in the itinerary before you get to this card, then it's going to score an extra 5 points for you, or something like that. And so the reason it feels really unique to me is it's almost like an engine building game, but an engine building game where you only fire off your engine once the entire game. It's all about planning just for this trip, for this firing off of the engine. And so you're puzzling together all how you're going to go, and do I need trains to get back from city to city and all that sort of stuff. And then you're just sort of, at the end of the game, you're moving down each column and going, okay, I got those symbols, I'm scoring for this. I got those symbols, I'm scoring for this. This is synergizing with this, and boom, 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 boom. And how did I, did my engine work well together? Did I not forget stuff that I needed to make this engine sort of hum? And so I love engine building games. They're some of my favorite games out there, but I've never played one like this where it's like it's all in service of just hitting it hard one last time at the end of the game, and it feels really cool. And my number one unique game of 2024 is the game Fromage from Road to Infamy. This plays 1 to 4 players in 30 to 45 minutes, and it is a medium weight game. This is a worker placement game. Thematically, you are making cheese. You're aging cheese, you're getting benefits, and all of it is about sort of putting these cheese stuff out there. But the thing that feels the most unique about it, that feels so interesting, is it is a worker placement game with a real timing aspect to how you place your workers. Because every round, there is going to be a wedge of the central board facing you. And that is where you can deploy your workers. That is where you can put out cheese. That is where you can get benefits and work on points and stuff like that. And then at the end of every round, we're all playing simultaneously, so we're all playing on our own little wedge. The board rotates. Well, every space for a worker is either a cheese wedge that's pointing this direction, or this direction. And you only get your workers back if they are facing you. So if I put a worker facing to the right, well then it's going to rotate, boom, it's going to be facing me, and I get it right back the next turn. But if I put one in a more beneficial spot, in a more powerful spot, it is now facing to the left, and it's going to take me 3 turns to get my worker back. And so it's just a real interesting sort of timing aspect of planning out when and where you're going to deploy your workers, and when you're going to get them back, and what you're going to use once you get them back, and how many of these resources do you need. So every round you can sort of deploy 2 workers typically. There's a 3rd spot on your own player board, but typically you are sort of placing 1 worker in this top section to gain a bonus or resources, and then 1 in the bottom section, which is sort of going to get you points in different ways. Each of these sort of wedges gets you points in different ways. Some of it is area control. Some of it is creating connections, paths between your cheese colors and stuff like that. And it just, that timing aspect of like getting your workers back once they're facing you is so cool and interesting. And there's a lot of worker placement games, and it feels hard to do it differently, and I feel like Fromage found a way to do it differently, and I think it's really cool because of that. I love the game for sure. So those are my 10 most unique games of 2024. Have you played any of these? I hope you have. Maybe if not, maybe you're going to check them out. If you also are like me and that you want sort of games that don't feel like anything you've played before, I think all these work for that reason. So thank you so much for subscribing. Thanks so much for liking the video, checking out my Patreon. I only have a couple more of these category videos left, and then it will all culminate in my top 10 games of the year. Just sort of overall top 10 games, no categories. These are just my favorite 10 games. So I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season and you're getting to play games with family and friends and loved ones and all that sort of stuff. Thanks so much, everybody.